Hey guys, it's Marshy, and welcome back. I know it's been some time, but I thought it would be good for a break. I finished college and now get back to our regularly scheduled content. We're back to r/Nosleep, and this one is by Bethil's Disciple. It turns out that some men are creepy. Because of the implications, I smiled and ran my fingers through Bert's hair. What exactly are you implying? He looked away from me, up at the star-speckled sky. A smile wider. The implication that things might go wrong for you if you tell anyone my little secret. I rolled my eyes and pulled my hand away. So you finally ask me out, after I've been dropping hints for work for weeks. And you think it's the perfect time to let me know that you get a higher body count than John Wayne Gacy? He pursed his lips and raised his eyebrows. 19 since last year, 13 this year. I've only got, one more to match his 33. He stroked my nose with his fingertip. I folded my arms as unease crept up my neck. And you're confident that I won't tell anyone you're, a serial killer because of the implication that... Look around, Jill. I took you 10 miles out of town so that we could drive up to the highest hilltop and look at the stars. The fear was starting to spread, which I thought was pretty romantic. I got all dressed up. I bet he's wearing like a Taco Bell hat. I could use some Taco Bell right now. That doesn't have to change, sweet thing. He licked his upper lip with his long, thin tongue. Why'd they have to describe his tongue like that? Gross. If I told someone what you revealed. His hand was on my neck before I realized he was moving. I have experience killing a person. I know what it takes. He flashed his ice blue eyes at me and squeezed like he was juicing a lemon. Do you know what it takes to kill someone, Jill? I tried to speak, but his grip was too tight. I stared at him and shook my head. Well, let me tell you what it takes to kill someone, Jill. My vision blurred as he squeezed tighter still. He slurped up a rogue strand of drool. What it takes is knowing that someone will present a threat. Someone who can't keep their mouth shut and says that she'll let everyone know a deep personal secret that she was entrusted with. That gives a man the strength to kill someone, Jill. My head spun. The white-hot pain in my throat was the only thing keeping me alert and conscious. I knew the darkness was about to win. I couldn't believe that the sensitive guy with the cute dimple had so much hate. My mind warbled. I'd gotten all dressed up for him. That was going to be my last, though. No. I reached down and fumbled with my numb fingers until I found it. Crack! The tip of my stiletto hit his temple, and Bert immediately slackened his grip. I dropped the shoe and snatched my phone from my purse, tumbling out the door, just as his fingertips grazed at the hem of my dress. I ran. He had the car, so I sprinted away from the road into the woody forest. I bet it was some marshy woods. My brain was still oxygen-starved, and I had no idea where I was. The worst was paranoia. Every creak, every snapping twig, every sound that I imagined to be real convinced me that Bert was just behind me, waiting to add me to the list. I periodically checked my phone, but had absolutely no service. I ran like that for so long that there seemed to be no differentiating dreams, reality, and the dark trees that had become my horrifying nightmare. I'd been so afraid. And then I found the road again. I ran onto it, almost burst into the other side before slamming myself to a hole. I looked to the right and saw nothing, and then I looked to the right left. Headlights! Headlights! I jumped and waved until a big rig pulled to the side of the road. I was crying by the time I jumped into the passenger seat. This is a long way to be out by yourself, little lady, the driver offered in a kind voice. Yes, I sobbed, focusing on getting my story out. Bert, my date, he tried to kill me. Can you please help me? He stared at me to shocked horror. My God. Of course, I'll radio that in for you. He shook his head. Wild night. Denny over here flagged me down as well. Says his car got stuck in the woods after he tried to follow his girlfriend where she had disappeared. Every hair on every part of my body stood up. Slowly, as I turned around. No, they couldn't be. Ice blue eyes stared back at me, hovering over a malicious grin. If I included you and Dirk the trucker, I'll be ahead by one, with 34. He licked his upper lip and grabbed my neck. He seemed to have forgotten that I always carried 2 shoes. Hopefully the second blow to the temple slowed him even more than the first, but I don't know. I dropped the other shoe as I was running into the woods again, as soon as I hit the ground. I have no idea what happened to Dirk. I can't make outgoing calls or text, but for some reason I have enough service to post online. If I disappeared, that means Bert found me. I'll update if I'm alive. Nope, no update. R.I.P. I'm so sorry. GG, I guess. This next one. Oh, we're sticking to the murderous significant other theme. This one's by Blair Daniels. My husband wears other people's faces. Interesting title. I'll give you credit. Creativity. Let's hustle. Come on. I don't think he would have told me. I don't think I would have believed him. Even if he did, but fate intervened. When I swung by the grocery store Tuesday after work, it happened. As I loaded my stuff into a conveyor belt, I heard a splat behind me. Ah, fiddlesticks. Fiddlesticks. That's what my husband Mike always says. Instead of cursing, I couldn't help but smile. I turned around to see an old man standing behind me, split open yogurt on the floor. I'll help you clean that up, I said, pulling some tissues out of my purse. He didn't move to help me. Didn't say thank you. Just stared at me, wide eyes, as if he were afraid. I ignored it and crouched down, wiping up the yogurt, then stood back up. He was gone. Rude. Yeah, what a fucking bitch. Pick up your yogurt, I thought, glancing around for him. He just left, without even thanking me, without even taking his groceries. The groceries? My heart did a little flip. I saw exactly what was on the conveyor belt. Non-fat blueberry yogurt, a can of black olives, cinnamon rice cakes, Old Spice shaving cream. Alone. They didn't mean anything, but together. That's exactly what Mike buys. When I got home, Mike was already waiting for me in the living room, his foot tapping the carpet faster than a jackrabbit getting ready for a race. Alina, he said, as soon as his eyes met mine. What's wrong? I asked. I have something to tell you. No. Every time I heard those words, it never ended well. I cheated. I lied. Mike was the first person I thought I'd never hear those words from, after all the hell I'd been through with my exes, but I guess I was wrong. That was me today, behind you at the grocery store. I was wearing someone else's face. Silence ticked by. What a fucking lunatic, holy shit. I mean, at least he's honest about it, like, gotta give him credit. He didn't lie to you. But silence ticked by. You mean, like a mask? Yeah, like a mask, but it's not a mask. His blue eyes locked on mine. It's real. What? What? Was all I could joke out. I worked in a mortuary for several years after high school, he continued. With each sentence he spoke, it got worse, and my heart dropped another inch. When family asked for a cremation or a closed casket burial, I'd steal the face of the deceased and began to wear them. If you store them properly, it doesn't go bad. I don't know if I believe that. Nausea rolled through me. People treated me differently when I was someone else. They treated me like a kid of Cedar Hill's only single mom when Harvey Thompson died. I wore his face once before his family announced his death. I got a 5-course meal at the local steakhouse, all for free. Eating with someone else's face, someone else's lips. You okay? You look pale. I honestly feel like throwing up. Yeah, me too. Jesus. Once you get used to it, it's not too bad. A long silence passed between us. I stared at the wall, unable to meet his eyes. If you need some space, time to process, that's fine, I get it, but I think you'll realize it isn't too bad. People have all kinds of secrets. Drugs, affairs, of all the secrets I could have. It isn't too bad, is it? It isn't so bad? What the actual fuck? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I found them. He kept them in the shed out back. He knew I never checked the shed because that's where his workshop was. Turns out, less of a workshop and more of a dressing room. My heart pounded in my chest. I stared at the wall. He's a psychopath. Aren't we all, sweetheart? Fear flushed through me as I stared at them. Saggy, deflated flesh hanging from pegs on the wall. Mostly belonging to white males, but from what I could tell, though, a few looked like women, and a few didn't really match his skin tone. They looked remarkably like Halloween cheap latex. The eyes, the nostrils, the mouth cut out. The hair a little muscled and matted, but the skin was a bit translucent on each of them, and a shade too gray to belong to living humans. Faces that belonged to real people, compressed and deformed and sagging under their own weight as they hung there. I ran out of the shed and promptly threw up all over the grass. Then I forced myself to go back inside because there's something. I recognized something. I slipped back into the shed and forced myself to more closely look at the faces, even though it made me retch. The one in the lower right with the short blonde hair and the hook nose. No. I recognized it. It was John, my college ex, the guy who'd emotionally manipulated me. Although my fragile young adulthood, making me believe I wasn't pretty enough, wasn't loved, who told me he loved me just to take me back, who'd broken up with me and put me back together, just to break me all over again. And that one there, the one with the dark hair and the large eye holes, that was Evan, my boyfriend in my late 20s, the one who cheated on me in the most devastating way with my best friend while he was out of town. I'd spent days, no, weeks, crying into my pillow, thinking nothing could possibly hurt me more. Nothing. Are you sure? 'Cause I know a few stab wounds can do some wonders. I was wrong. This hurt more. I stared at the several faces I'd recognized, all exes, all guys who'd hurt me in devastating, awful, horrible ways. The kind of pain that lingered long after they'd been gone, like a scar on my soul. I ran out of the shed and ran to my car. My hands shook as I fit the key into the ignition and then peeled out of there. Like a banana, I peeled out of there. Womp womp. I drove for hours, not even knowing where I was going, except that it was away from him. I finally stopped at a hotel 5 hours from home, checked into a room, locked the door, and collapsed on my bed. But I'm not sure I'm safe. Because as I was writing this, someone knocked on my door, and when I looked through the peephole, I saw a member of the staff standing on the other side, with faint lines cut around his eyes, his nostril and mouth. I've locked the deadbolt, and he can't get in, but at some point I'll have to leave my room. Maybe tomorrow morning, maybe a week from now. And he'll be waiting for me. Ooh. I like this one a lot. This one's called The Great Cryptid Hunt. Now, if you guys don't already know, I love cryptids myself. This one's by Sean M. Gleason. My brother is missing. He's been gone for the better part of 2 years. This wouldn't be unusual for Gary, though. We grew up together, separated for only a few years. Only a few years. He was always the adventurous one, courageous, brave, and intelligent. The worst combination for an older brother, I should know. Everybody loved and admired him, and I lived in his shadow. Most people would be resentful, but Gary was a character who raised those around him. I always knew that he would end up making a positive difference in the world. When he told me he was going to be away for a few months in the summer of my senior year, I wasn't surprised. He'd always been involved with a statewide operation which led to the seizure of a large amount of narcotics. He was an investigative journalist and had spent months working from the inside to build a case for the local police. The next big case was another year, undercover, working to tear down an arms dealer. The group were supplying and fueling gang wars, profiting from the lives of men killed by the weapon put in their hands. He told me some details over a few drinks one night over the holidays. He didn't say much until late into the night. He told me that he had now been involved in getting to the position to know the head of the operation. Didn't like to reminisce on for too long. It was the same night he told me about his next assignment. He was working on bringing down a worldwide organization who arranged big game hunting trips for seedy individuals. I met him a couple months later, and he told me that he was leaving the country to meet with the group. That was the last I'd heard of him from today. Oh, hello. My cat has decided to step on my keyboard. You want to read too? Say hi to the audience. Thank you. I received an email this morning from an unknown sender. The subject titled, "For the Attention of the Big Fellow." I normally would delete these, but it caught my attention. Gary had always called me Big Fella since I passed him in height at 15. I'm about an inch taller than him, and wouldn't be considered a big fella by any means, but the email's contents contained a text file, a journal dating his time with the group. The text file just said the following: "I don't think I'm going to make it back from this one, big fella. The latter is why I've reached out to you. I fear something terrible has happened. I'm trying to track down his location from any clues hidden in these files. Unfortunately, I have to piece it together from the story of fragmented documents. I'm hoping one of you may be able to help locate him." May 5th, 2022. Last week, I had received a notification to meet in a small town of North Dakota. It was addressed to Mr. Jonathan Marley, the alias in which I have been communicating under. The letter was stamped with a golden view of the head of the page, where the list of essentials such as camping equipment, warm clothing, hunting equipment, food would be provided on site before departure. There was a highlighted asterisk beside the hunting equipment. It said if you bring your own weaponry, rifle and sidearm, it must be compatible with .308 and 9mm caliber, respectively. Weapons will be provided on departure if requirement cannot be met. The request felt strange to me, but I knew this group was very exclusive in admission, and I presumed it was part of the procedures to remain anonymous. The final part of the note stated the next part of the trip would be confirmed on the day. Our meeting point, situated on the outskirts of the forest, the town seemed abandoned, other than the people from the Venatores, Latin for hunters. I don't know if I said that right, but I don't care. A mix of men and women equipped in military-grade gear, quite heavy-duty for a simple hunting expedition. The main spokesperson for the Venatores was a broad man called Crane. He wore a dusty black cowboy hat, pulled down to his highs. His right cheek had 3 prominent scars running towards his top lip. "I'd like to thank you all for asking me to join on the great cryptid hunt. This adventure will bring us into contact with the most prestigious prey known to man." I wasn't sure what he meant by cryptid. Are they trying to get Mothman? Holy cow. Don't kill my boy. I wasn't sure what he meant by cryptid, but the other 10 people who seemed to be joining the party didn't look too confused by this. "I'd like to remind you all that this hunt is partaken at your own risk. I'm presuming you have the necessary precautions in place if something were to go wrong." A slight murmur of agreement from the crowd allowed Crane to continue. "This is your last chance to pull out. Once I name our first intended target, there's no going back. Please return to your vehicle and leave if you have any doubt about your commitment." He eyed the group intensely, waiting for a response, but when no one backed away, he smiled. "With that, we are bound to the hunt." He raised his fist in triumph. "Go collect your ammunition from the table to your left. Silver bullets are the only thing that can take down a Wendigo." "Oh. A Wendigo. Oh, it is North Dakota. I don't know why I thought it was Virginia. I even said North Dakota. Understandable. Although, I don't know. I felt like that's a werewolf thing. I'd say I don't think Wendigos can be taken down by silver bullets, but okay. The group set out as it reached its peak. Crane, the only member of the Venatores, the other were able to hold down base camp. Come to our aid if the need arouse. They were also arranging transport for the next trip to Ireland. 4 members of the gang split into the right. "They better not hurt my Nessie, bro. We're about to fight."
We're about to fight if they try to hurt Nessie. 4 members of the gang split off to the right. A hushed but frantic discussion barely audible. Marco, son of an Italian super yacht distributor, accompanied by his partner, Lola, and 2 friends, Antonio and Michael, all of whom were reassuring Lola that this trip was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to see magical creatures walk among us. I was unsure how anyone would describe a Wendigo as magical from the stories you'd hear on the internet, but my expectations for this hunt have reduced dramatically. The thoughts of uncovering a huge, illegal hunting enterprise have tethered out as I realized we'd be hunting a painted elk with soundbox attached. It's hard to comprehend how the Venators had managed to pull the wool over the eyes of so many wealthy and prominent figures. For the sake of my cover, I know I will have to play the role for this trip, but I'm hoping that I may depart before the next step's destination. Where's the next leg of the trip, by the way? I called out to Crane, who led the party, as we broke through the tree lines. Ah, yes. I knew I was forgetting something. He turned to address us. The next target is the mythical siren, who calls out to announce the passing of loved ones. A banshee, Joshua quoted in a thick Texan... a banshee, Joshua quoted in a thick Texas accent. He too adorned a cowboy hat, but his was polished and new. You got it in one, Mr. Williams, Crane clapped, his hands enthusiastic. You hear that, Junior? We're heading to Ireland. Joshua clapped. Oh, that's why they're going. Okay, they're leaving Nessie alone. I'm chill with that. Fuck the benchies. Josh clapped on his own son on the back as the two discussed the terrain they may have to deal with while hunting a banshee. Joshua Jr., or JJ, as he was known, was a splitting image of his father, albeit half his size. JJ needed every bit of his belt loop to keep his trousers above his ankles. As night fell, we made it to our camp in the clearing that Crane had spotted. We'll take turns on duty tomorrow night, if it takes that long. I'll let you get some rest. No need to be the hero, Crane. Each one of us is experienced enough to keep a fire going. Crane dismissed the remark with some reassuring words on how he was well rested and would enjoy the task. That seemed to settle Joshua, as he felt there was no questioning of his abilities. I took out my notepad to scribble down the thoughts for the day. I was running through ideas of how the Venators concocting this fraudulent trip when JJ approached. Are you working on your checklist? He asked as he sat beside me. No, just journaling the day. I like to keep my thoughts down while they're still fresh. My response didn't seem to register with JJ. Me and my pops have most things checked off already. Lions, elephants, cheetahs, grizzly or two. JJ seemed to be reminiscing as he asked, have you ever encountered anything of this kind before? Not even in the slightest. It was an honest response. I'm aware of how much it cost to get involved with the Venators, and JJ and his father had paid double. I didn't want to be one to break the news that we were searching for was no doubt a dud. We saw something like this on our farm a couple years back. Kept terrorizing the cattle. Tore some into pieces, so it did. He looked over towards his father. Pops didn't know what to do, so he shot that son of a bitch damn near 10 times. It kept coming back. He gestured to another member of the group, sat alone, cleaning his rifle. Caleb Bolton, a dark-skinned man with cat-like eyes. He had his head shaved to the skin. A tree-trunk neck was proportionate to the rest of his body. Mr. Bolton came late one night and set off into the darkness. Next morning, he came back covered in blood and deep gashes. He walked right up to Pa and said, it's been dealt with, and just walked off. Slipped him an envelope worth more than the cows on the farm. He went off into the distance, leaving a trail of blood in his wake. I looked over at Caleb, wondering what brought a man like him here, only to notice he was staring back. The night wore on, and nothing to report. We settled in and went to sleep as Crane looked out over the forest. I woke up late into the night as a sharp stick I missed nearly punctured my lungs as I rolled over. I could see Crane sitting with his back to the tree, face illuminated by the glow of his cigarette. Can't sleep, Mr. Marley. Crane asked, as he fished another cigarette out of his pack and handed it to me. "You can call me Jonathan," I said as I lit the cigarette. I sat down beside him, looking over the camp. "Will the fire not attract the Wendigo?" I asked, gesturing to the crackling blaze in the center of the sleeping bags. "No need to worry about that, Jonathan." Crane tipped the ashes onto a stone beside him and pointed across the camp of dense trees. "He's been following us since we got here." Crane's words stayed with me as I lay awake. There was a small part of me that was truly scared. The part of me was largely present as a child when the darkness held shadows of figures that you couldn't comprehend. His demeanor would convince most that we're truly dealing with a creature of the supernatural. I left his side feeling as if we were the ones being hunted. Full of mixed emotions, I tossed and turned for what seemed like hours, my skepticism battling hard against my situation I found myself in. The forest added to my unease. Branches rustled. A slight breeze blew through the camp. The debate playing out in my mind was silenced by a strangled scream that echoed in the encampment. "Where's Lucas?" Ellie asked as she ripped out of her sleeping bag, grabbing her husband Levi by the shoulder. Levi by the shoulders. Levi gathered up his rifle and started towards the location of the uproar, calling out for his son. Caleb and Crane were already ahead of him. I followed after bringing the handgun I had under my pillow. Caleb and Crane split off in separate directions, directing each other through pointing gestures. They encircled an area 15 feet from where I stood. Crane surveyed the area thoroughly as Caleb scanned the trees. "Something was here, all right, but I don't think it was your son." Crane looked at Levi, his face full of concern. That sense of dread intensified. Marco and Antonio came rushing towards us, the faces slick with sweat. "Lucas is okay. He was just going to the toilet," Marco said, panting. "He came back not long after you left. We weren't sure what to do, so we came and got you," Antonio said, hunching over from the extension. Levi let out a sigh of relief as he made his way over to thank the guys for bringing the good news. I turned to Crane and asked him what he thought had made the noise out here, and the color drained from his face. "We have to get back now." Crane pushed past us, sprinting in the direction of the camp. "It seems we have been fooled," Caleb said, much more calmly than the situation deserved. We raced through the trees, receiving nicks and cuts as we ran without hesitation. I was pulling away from the main group just to keep pace with Crane and Caleb, my arms pumping like pistons working to their max. The two in the front didn't seem to be putting so much effort into their stride. Yet they uttered the ground like a marathon runner on his first mile. They were discussing what they might find on our return, but I was focused on filling my lungs with deep breaths of air. Honestly, relatable to hear what they were saying, but they burst into the camp, frightening the 4 remaining members who looked perfectly fine sitting around the fireplace. "Jesus Christ, Crane, you frightened me half to death," Michael said. Michael was gripping his rifle tightly as the others shrank behind him. Levi was next to break the clearing, overjoyed to see his family safe as well. Ellie went over to greet him as he stretched out her arm to take his hand in hers. Lucas let out a cry of panic. Her arm never made it far enough to embrace her husband. The Wendigo burst out from the shadows, grabbing Ellie by the arm and tearing it off. Holy shit, this went from 0 to 100. Tore fucking her arm off, tearing it off and flung her down on the moss-covered floor. She bounced with force, but managed to remain conscious as the beast reared his fangs at her. The sight of the creature made my blood turn to ice. It was a humanoid in some respects, although its limbs were elongated beyond belief. Its ribs protruded from its sides, stretching its pale skin into a bursting point. Blood ran down its face and its chest as it tore a chunk from the arm which it held. It seemed to stare into my soul as I froze in place awaiting certain death. Michael aimed at the monstrous figure and
pulled his shot. The bullet struck Ellie in the temple. On reflection, I believe that was an act of mercy from whatever god looked down upon us. The Wendigo screamed in anger and flung Ellie's body towards us. It crashed into Lucas, knocking him back several feet, his mother's blood now covering him in a shower of crimson moonlight. Levi managed to pull himself from the daze once he noticed the creature was heading towards his son. He looked at his wife's corpse, and pure rage boiled over. He tackles the Wendigo with all his might, knocking the beast into the fire. It tripped over as its right foot caught a blaze. Levi fell on top of it and unloaded the clip of his pistol into the creature's chest. For every bullet he fired, the Wendigo tore off a strip of flesh. His chest was open, a mist of red spraying into the night sky. His face was next to go. Teeth were launched 10 feet in all directions. Levi kept firing through his brutal assault as the hammer clicked empty. Not much remained to identify Levi. His rage-fueled attack cost him his life. The Wendigo pushed the remains of Levi to the side and clambered to its feet. The silver bullets lodged into his chest were bringing the monster closer to its final breath. "Steady now," Crane called out as he raised his sights. "On my mark." Lucas roared as he ran towards the Wendigo. He brandished a blade from his sheath with murderous intention. I tried to grab him as he raised his blade for the killing blow. I could see what looked like a grin on the Wendigo's face, though, as a large gaping hole in Lucas's chest. The Wendigo had punched through, tearing his heart out in one swift motion. "For fuck's sake." "Yeah, for fuck's sake indeed," Crane said in disbelief. "Fire!" The forest erupted in a cacophony of gunfire as bits of Wendigo were torn apart. It crumpled to the ground, relishing in the delight of its gain of one more soul before it fell. Crane dropped his rifle and walked back towards the tree where his cigarettes once were. He picked up the tattered box which had been destroyed in the melee. I offered him one of mine as we sat by the tree soaked in blood of many. "And then there was 7, he said, as he ignited the match on the striker box. Thank you for watching. If you really enjoyed, please remember to like and subscribe. I'm Marshy, and I hope you have a great day. See ya.